What are the best adult-only cruise lines and cruises in the world today? I'm Gary Bembridge. This is another of my cruising tips for travelers. There are surprisingly few adult-only cruise lines and cruises, so I thought I would explore what those are and the best ones that you can focus on if you're looking for a kids-free vacation, plus some tips on how to make sure if you do want to cruise kids-free that you choose cruises that, even if they're not adults only, are going to minimize the chance of having loads of kids. So let's start by looking at the adult-only cruise lines. There are surprisingly few adult-only cruise lines, which is quite a surprise considering that this is something that's been identified as a growing trend in cruising. There are probably only 3 key adult-only cruises. The first of those is the new boy on the block, and that's Virgin Voyages. Virgin Voyages have Scarlet Lady in 2020, they have Valiant Lady in 2021, and 2 more ships coming in the 2 years after that. The first 2 ships are going to be adults only. So Scarlet Lady is going to be based in the Caribbean, sailing out of Miami, and Valiant Lady in the Mediterranean, sailing Mediterranean trips. You have to be over 18 to go on a Virgin voyage. We don't know if the future ships are going to be family or not, but certainly if you're looking for an adults-only cruise, and certainly one that's going to be very high energy, very buzzy, lots of partying, and loads of special adults-only features, Virgin Voyages is definitely one to consider. Virgin Voyages have largely all-inclusive fares, so they're going to throw in Wi-Fi, they're going to throw in all the dining options, of which there will be many. Gratuities are included, some basic soft drinks and things like coffees are going to be included. So quite a lot is going to be included within the Virgin fare. The second one is probably going to be a little bit more mature and sophisticated even than Virgin Voyages, which is aiming to really cater for the youthful at heart. And that is Viking Cruises. To cruise on a Viking ocean cruise, in fact even on a river cruise, you have to be over 18 years old. So certainly if you're looking for a sort of more sophisticated, perhaps more refined kind of cruising experience, one that's perhaps a little bit more laid back, less sort of party-like, then Viking is a great one to consider. Viking have quite a lot included within their fares, so that's a big plus. So they normally have excursions in many of the ports included, drinks at meal times, lunch and dinner are included, Wi-Fi is included. So the key extras will be things like gratuities and other extra excursions. The third adults-only cruise line is one that's catering for the over 50s, and that is Saga Cruises. They sail mostly out of the UK and they cruise all year round out of the UK. So you have to be 50 to go on the cruise. However, people in your party can be under 50, ideally over 40 to go on the cruise. They also cater a lot for solo travelers. So 20% of their ships are solo cabins at all sorts of grades. So they have the Spirit of Discovery and the Spirit of Adventure. So a very new fleet, Spirit of Discovery came into service in 2019 and Spirit of Adventure in 2020. Those are the only 3 totally dedicated adults-only cruises. There are some that offer adult cruising some times of the year on some specific ships. So let's take a look at what those are. There are then 4 cruise lines that either have ships dedicated adults only or at certain times of the year offer adult only cruises. Now what's interesting about that is most of them are actually UK owned or operated cruise lines, although many of them do sail internationally. The first and one of the best known, certainly in the UK, is P&O Cruises. So they have quite a big fleet which is growing, and at the time of recording they have 7 ships either launched or announced, including Iona, and they offer family cruises. However, they have 2 ships, which is Aurora and Arcadia, which all year round offer adult-only cruises. And what's interesting about both those ships is they do sail around the world. They go to the Caribbean, for example, and some of them even do grand world voyages. So as an adult, you can definitely find many of the regions of the world you can cruise adults only on P&O Cruises. The second cruise line which falls into this category is Marella. Now Marella is part of the TUI travel group, and in the UK Marella is their cruise brand. It's a very, very popular and fast growing brand, partly because it's really good value, so the fares are pretty low, and it's all inclusive, so everything is bundled into those fares. They have one ship which is the Marella Explorer 2, which is a focused adult only ship. So that sails adults only, and the facilities and things are catered to adults. So they stripped out things like the kids club when they acquired that ship. With the rest of their fleet, they do offer adult-only cruises at certain times of the year, and that tends to be out of peak school holiday periods. So Marella is certainly a great one to look at. Marella, very UK focused, so tends to sail mostly out of the UK and very UK passenger focused. The third cruise line that falls into this category is Cruise and Maritime. This is UK operated, owned, and sails out of the UK mostly. However, their ships do go internationally. So if you take a look at their itineraries, you'll find them heading right down to Australia, through Asia, into the Caribbean. So certainly it's definitely one to consider. They have, certainly at the time of recording, 4 key ships within their fleet. And those are the Columbus, the Magellan, the Marco Polo, and the Astoria. Now the Marco Polo and the Astoria are their adult focused ships. So they sail normally all year round, adults only. The other 2 in their fleet, so the Magellan and the Columbus, they operate as adult only most of the year round, but they will have families, certainly multi-generational cruises, particularly in the school holiday period. So certainly Cruise and Maritime is leaning very much towards adult, and most of the year they operate adult only. The fourth cruise line that falls into this category is Fred Olsen. Fred Olsen, although it is Scandinavian linked and owned, it is very much a UK cruise brand, and it's very popular particularly with a slightly older audience. And they do sail, again, extensively. They have a world cruise that goes all around, so certainly if, no matter which part of the world you're in, you probably can buy one of the legs to cruise somewhere exotic in the world. And they do offer adult-only cruises at certain times of the year. So certainly if you look at their website, you'll find which are defined as adults only, but they do, in the rest of the year, have very kids-friendly cruises. So certainly Fred Olsen's a good one to look at, particularly if you're looking for longer voyages. They're very reasonably priced and will offer you adult-only cruising. If none of those appeal to you, there are some cruise lines which are pretty adult-focused, certainly by the nature of the ships they have and the sort of experience. And these tend to be the smaller, more premium cruise lines. So the 2 I'm really thinking of here are Oceania Cruises and Azamara Cruises. They operate small ships, so they'll have ships around about 700 passengers up to about 1,200 passengers, so that's sort of small to mid-size. They tend to be very destinations focused. They don't have kids clubs facilities on board, and the whole experience, the destinations, the length of the cruises is geared very much to an adult's audience. So it's very likely if you go on those cruises that you're not going to find kids on board because they just don't cater for them. The one exception is probably in Alaska. Oceania, during the key Alaska season, certainly in the holiday period, will put some programs on for kids, but they don't have family cabins on those 2 cruise lines. They don't generally have kids clubs, and it's very, very focused towards adults. So certainly if none of the others appeal to you, take a look at Oceania and Azamara, because you're more than likely not going to find kids on board. And if there are kids on board, they're probably going to be much older, so late teens, early 20s, which I guess aren't kids anymore, on those particular cruise lines. If you want to cruise without kids, you've got your adult-only cruise lines, which you've seen are not that many. You've got those that some or part of the year, either through cruises or some of their ships, operate as adult-only, and some which are biased really towards adults. How do you, no matter which cruise line you're on, minimize the chance of having kids on board? Well, first of all, look at longer cruises. So the longer the cruise, the less likely there's going to be kids on board, just because of the nature of the way that holidays and family lives work. Secondly, of course, avoid any key holiday periods, whether that's school holidays, Christmas, Easter, any of the big, holiday periods like Thanksgiving in the US, for example. So avoid all of those and look at the times when kids are most likely to be in school. So for example, I really like cruising in November time into very early December. I like cruising in February, even from mid-January, but certainly February times are a really great time to go, and June are really good times. So periods around those, just take a look if there's any big, half-term holidays or whatever. But those are the months that I really, really like to cruise because the chance of having kids is really, really small. And the other thing to do is look at itineraries which are a little bit more exotic. So the Mediterranean is going to have lots of itineraries that are going to be very popular with families. The Caribbean, of course, very popular with kids and families. So as you start to spread out into more exotic parts of the world, you're going to find less chance of there being kids on board. There are surprisingly few adults-only cruise lines at this point in time. Hopefully this has helped you. If you do want to cruise without kids, find the best way to go, whether it's adult-only cruise lines that have adult-only part of their fleet or part of the year, or lines that are very focused on adults anyway, even though they don't have a policy around kids coming on board. I have many more cruising tips and advice videos, so why don't you watch another one of those right now.